I'm going to say our guest today is a little bit of a departure from our traditional type of guest, because we have a guest who's an author of a book called Lean On, the 5 Pillars of Support for Women. He is a man who thinks one of the ways that women should be supported in this day and age is by relying on stay-at-home dads. And he is going to discuss with us how to make that work, who it's right for, and all the things. Because, listen, I can imagine a lot of people be like, oh, heck no. But I think after we speak to, his name is Andreas Wilderer. Now, we're going to have to get a little confirmation of the way you say his name, because it's spelled Wilderer. Like, he ain't just Wilder. He's Wilderer. but he's from Germany, so maybe there's some accent on the wrong syllable that I'm not doing here.
Is the entire book based on that concept?
Yes.
Of why women should...
How stay-at-home dad relationships can work. And he's a speaker, he's a consultant, he's a coach, and what I dig about him is he's a man who is promoting empowerment for women. I like that in a guy.
Well, what? I think people should be more open to that. I mean, we'll save the discussion, but why would it be? I remember years ago Al Roker saying on TV that when he would go in public places with his kids and people approach and say, oh, are you babysitting today? And it was like, why? Would you ever approach your mom and say, oh, are you babysitting today?
Right, because we're not there yet.
Whatever works, right?
Right, I agree. So I'm very interested in speaking with him, which we will do, Andreas Wilderer, after the break.
All right. That sounds good with Jonna and Keryl. This is Happy Hour, and we'll be right back with our guests, so please stick with us. You're listening to K104.
Jonna and Keryl on K104. It's Happy Hour.
And welcome back to Happy Hour again here. Happy Sunday morning to you. And it's time for our second segment. And, of course, our second segment with Jonna and Keryl is always with our guest. And we have Andreas Wilderer with us here today.
Yes. And our guest today, Andreas Wilderer, is the author of Lean On, the 5 Pillars of Support for Women in Leadership. And a little bit about Andreas is he is a business leader and entrepreneur. He also recognized that women can be providers and men can be the nurturers. Wilderer began focusing on coaching female leaders while teaching men how to actively support them. I love this already. And he is also a Gallup certified strength coach. We've had a previous, our friend
Robin Torres from Marist College.
Is one of those, and she's fantastic. And I know Andreas is going to be fantastic. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
So we were gossiping about you before we called you up because I could be wrong, and maybe you can dispel this if this is a myth. I think the whole notion of having dads stay at home and care for the kids while the mom goes out to be the breadwinner and work is something that we have not yet embraced totally as a society. But I want you to tell us why maybe we ought to. So tell us a little bit about, is that the primary focus of your book, Lean On, or is that just one facet of it?
This is just one facet of it, but it's a very important facet. And no, we have not embraced it enough. Being a stay-home dad, taking care of the kids has become much better in the last 13 years. I'm since 13 years a stay-home dad, so I have seen a lot change in the last few years, but we are not there where we should be as society today. And that's especially when we ask women to lean into their work and go back to work, break the glass ceiling. Who is taking care of the kids? Who is going to be the nurturer for the family so women can do that? And so if we ask for more women to go to work and break the glass ceiling, we need also to ask the men to step up and help out with the family.
That's a really good point.
My God.
It's like a counterbalance. Hey, lean. Exactly. Wow.
And it's almost obvious. Like, I just wanted to hit myself in the head and say, why didn't I think of that? That makes
How can you
sense.
have one without the other dynamic stepping in? Wow.
Yes.
My cousin is the breadwinner, a female, the mom in her family, and her husband is the one that primarily stays home and takes care of the kids.
All right, so they're making it work. Okay, so is there some secret to making it work. And the reason I ask is that I'm sure you have to have a conversation if you're going to do this in your own family with each other. The spouses, the parents need to speak to each other. But it's, society kind of looks at people strangely when you do this. So it's not just happening under your roof. You got to be comfortable no matter who's going to throw barbs at you. So how would somebody go about making this work? Who is it good for?
So the first decision has to be made in the family, and it has to be made by the husband or by the man. It has to be made if I'm going to be a stay-home dad, I need to be okay with it. I need to be okay with my wife earning more than me do. I must be okay with being maybe looked at strange from other people in society, but because you will always have those people who say, why are you staying home, or can't you provide for your family? So this is a decision the man has to make for himself and in co-work with his wife, because that's the next one. It's one of the topics I address in my book is you need to empower each other. And this means when we decide, okay, he is the stay-home dad, that means also he gets the key to the house. He makes the rules. She has to follow his lead when we're talking about how do we raise the children. It doesn't make sense for her to say, okay, I'm going to work, but I'm still making all those decisions and have actually him only babysit what I want to do. We have to embrace each other. So this is the main decision between the couple to make. Are we all okay with doing it? So it's set up for success.
And honestly, why not? Other than it's just been past stereotypical relationships, why wouldn't it equally work as well for the husband to be the primary caregiver and the wife to work? And I think part of the challenge, and this is why you're saying it's so important to have that discussion amongst the couple first to really get on the same page, is where women and men differ in how they validate their worth. And men are typically the providers. So it really, and I kind of agree with you that this decision has to really settle good with the husband first, or the father first.
It has, and this is we are raised to see masculinity in a certain way. Especially as a man, you have seen it from your parents and from your father. What is it to be a man? And this is going to be redefined right now, but there are still those old impressions. That's how a man needs to be. And for having respect for myself, I have to overcome those prejudices about what is it to be a masculine man. I don't have to define myself about being the Marlboro cowboy again. So those are where we have to go as society.
And honestly, what more important job could there be than to be caring for and raising your children? Well, why is that looked at as a second step down or something? I don't get it.
I think personally it would have a lot of couples, when two parties are going to go to work, you're spending a lot of money to have a stranger oftentimes come in and take care of your children.
And sometimes you don't have a choice.
No, and I know, and sometimes you don't have a choice. So if you have a choice, this might not be a bad way to go. But so this can only really, or this works best, I should say, this kind of arrangement when both spouses have sort of an equal opportunity income-wise, right? Because you wouldn't want to take, let's say the husband is a CEO of a big corporation and the wife is working her way toward that and is not at the same income level. It doesn't make sense to have I guess it makes sense to be more traditional in a case like that, or
well, there's a matter of practicality comes first. If you have your lifestyle and your bills that have to be met, and one can meet that better than the other one, but all other things equal.
What say you, Andreas, about that?
So there are, Betsy Myers has 3 types of women in leadership defined. The first one is the late bloomers, and those are women that maybe already raised children and start later in their career, or their husbands have been the CEO. They want to step back and they start working full time. Then we have the part of the power couple where both women and men go work together or go out, fulfill their dreams, and the family somehow is maybe raised by nannies. And then we have the breadwinners and stay-home dads. And depending on where you are in this situation or in those three models, it makes maybe more sense to have a stay-home dad, or it makes just more sense for the dad to be a more active role in the raising of the children. I don't say every man has to be a stay-home dad, but I say every man should step up more and help raise the children in a better way and give the female more freedom, more power, more time to go to work and fulfill her dreams.
So, Andreas, let me ask you. Now, you had mentioned that you've been the stay-home dad now for 13 years. 13 years ago, what was it that you guys sat down with for somebody that may be sitting down to do this for the first time? Maybe they're considering something like this, or they've run into the situation where, hey, my wife does make way more money than I do. Maybe this could work for us. What was it that spurred the conversation that had you eventually get into the spot you're in?
So we fell into it without having the right conversations. That's why I tried to write my book and help others not to learn from all the mistakes we made. When we were still in Germany, I stayed home because the government made it so easy for men to stay at home, and I was one of the first ones who were paid to stay home, has a paid maternity leave for men.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 4 months after the law was made, I was one of the first ones to apply for it. So it's really, in January they made the law, in May I started to be it. So, and then when we came to the US, I was not allowed to work at the beginning. I didn't have my work visa, so we were here, and I only had the choice to stay home with the kids. And then we saw it's good for me to be home with the kids, not only to give the kids somebody they can lean on and have the stability as at least one parent is home, but also for my wife. She was traveling all the time and is now, I would say always, she's gone 4 out of 4 weeks, and it makes it easier for her to know the kids are taken care of by someone who loves them just as much as she would, instead of having them raised by a babysitter.
And if I could just go on a little bit of a tangent. I know personally, for example, when you are, like, I run a business, so I make a lot of decisions all the time, every day, 24/7. So sometimes when I and my much younger boyfriend, Andreas, are trying to decide where to go for dinner, I'll say to him, you make the decision. Like, I'm all decided out. Just you make the decision, you make the plan, and I will follow. And that, to me, and when that doesn't happen, it's upsetting. And when it does happen, it's like, thank you for supporting me and taking something off my shoulders.
And you know what? There's a key point with thank you for supporting me. And to communicate in what way you can be supported, right? It's like that expectation that maybe so the man stays home, the woman goes and she's in a leadership position, and then you get anger. We women are so good at this. It's passive aggressive of, you should know.
Right.
What are you mad at?
I gotta tell you.
Right. Yes. So I think it's up to the woman in that situation, or just really in general in life, if you need more support, to properly and identify that and communicate in what way. What does support look like to you? Because you just said it, Jonna. In your world, that's what it looks like.
Right.
Yes, this part of communication, having an open conversation, having open communication and not assuming something. That's, I think, one of the biggest, no matter what family model you have, there's not assuming what the spouse wants or the partner wants, but starting to talk about it. That's something I always say, and it's coming out in my book is strong. Have this conversation with them. Together, make goals, make a 5-year plan, make a 10-year plan. That's where we both agree where we want to go. Maybe we have to compromise, but at least everybody knows where we want to go together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What other concepts? So in your book, Lean In, the 5 pillars of support for women. Can you, without giving away too much of the book, can you tell us what the 5 pillars of support for women are?
So the 5 pillars are self, partnership, family, work, and society. And how are the 5 pillars defined is, what 5 areas do you have to work through to be an active support or make it work? You have to be okay with yourself. like we talked about, is the man up to it? Is the woman up to it? You have to have the conversation together in your partnership and say, okay, that's how I want to do it. That's how who is taking care of what, making those rules. Then the same one with the family. When it comes to older kids suddenly, like my children are 12 and 8, and they went through so much in living a non-traditional life, being bullied by the neighbor kids because they didn't understand this. And so those are conversations we have to have. Then in the workplace, of course, and in society, we have society to make up for it. So those are the 5 pillars I'm talking in the book about.
You raised a good point, too, because it kind of touches on what I said a little bit ago, and that is this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like, the decision might be made under your roof, but your children go out into school and, their friends, they go to their friends' houses, and daddy's the one who's going out and making the money, and mommy's the one who's staying, or both parents are going out. So I suppose there's a way that you have to sit down as a family, even with your young kids, and let them know that this is normal.
Yeah, here the best example was for us. My son's friends always came over on Saturday and asked, do you want to come out to play? And he said several weekends after another, no, mommy is at home. And suddenly he was bullied at school as, he doesn't want to play because he has his mommy. Until we explained it and said, mommy is not here from Monday until Sunday, or Monday until Friday. So if she is home, it's the special time. And then they understood, but we had to teach them, and that was in first grade. So teaching a first grader and his friends that it's different, those small things are what the kids have to learn and accept for themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, because those small things aren't actually small. I think
I agree.
I think that's huge. And if I were in this kind of situation, I would make sure I sat down with my kids when they did see me on the weekends and say, you better not love daddy more than you love me. That would be that would be my challenge, Andreas.
But what's really important though is the fact that you were able to have the conversation with those kids and maybe stem the tide of future bullying. As they get older, maybe they're able to understand now. I mean, that's tremendous.
It was great, and I applaud my neighbors and the mothers who helped to bring this issue to their children and to explain it to them, since they were really traditional, brought up, daddy went to work, stay-home moms, and suddenly this complete different.
Right. Now, here's one question for you. So if you're like the one dad in the neighborhood that's a stay-home dad, and there's a bunch of other moms, it's almost like a sitcom. Does your wife get jealous at all of the other moms looking at the cool dude there?
No, actually, the other moms are not open to stay-home dads. So
really?
There's still a big gap between it. So when I go to birthday parties for the children after school, normally the moms hang together and the dads, most of them see me as, okay, here comes the normal dad who brings the kids to the birthday party, instead of accepting me as one of theirs. So those, luckily now more and more dad support groups are out there. So you can go online and look for stay-home dad networks and stuff like that. Facebook has great groups and city meetups, but this was different 10 years ago. So there's still this gap between moms, stay-home moms, and stay-home dads.
Well, yeah, and I get it, but you are really a bit of a pioneer, and I applaud you for being a man in this world and doing what you can, writing books, coaching, speaking to help support women and empower women. So, and I know that people can find you at your website, which is yourname.com. It's AndreasWilderer.com. The book is Lean On: The 5 Pillars of Support for Women in Leadership. And where can they get the book, Andreas?
You can get it on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles.
Great. And I did visit your website. There's a lot of cool stuff on there, and I would encourage, a ton. I would encourage people, if you want to learn more about this, if you think this might be a lifestyle for you, or just there's some other stuff on your website, too, that's very interesting. Your Gallup Certified Strengths information. Go to AndreasWilderer.com. We've really enjoyed having you as our guest. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andreas. I really appreciated what you had to say, and some of it was eye-opening. So
Yeah, this is going to pick up steam.
Yeah.
It's going to pick up steam. All
Great.
right.
All right, well, this is Happy Hour with Jonna Spilbor and Keryl Pesce, and we're not done yet for this morning, so you guys all hang with us, and we'll be back. This is